everyone, and welcome back to Purple Nuna Podcasts. With me is the incomparable Savanna Lanause. Let's give it up for Savanna.
Thanks, guys.
And I'm your host, Senor Love Daddy, here on the radio.
I don't know why I wasn't expecting that.
So I had just warned Savanna, I was like, hey, I'm going to give myself an intro based off the movie. And she was like, who could she be comparing herself to? So, hi, everyone. It's Senor Love Daddy here.
That's my favorite one.
Well,
we got to make that
you, Savanna. Oh, my God. Can I think maybe... Senor Love Daddy just resonates really. Like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, I love that. It resonates so well. You call yourself
Daddy Conti a lot of the time. So
I do have usernames on various social medias where it's Daddy Conti. Well, it works. But hey, how are you doing today, Savanna?
I'm fine. I'm having a Reese's.
Having a Reese's? Mm-hmm. Ooh, nice. Nice. I'm sipping on, I've been making a lot of syrups lately. Like, I've been making my own little simple syrups because I'm trying to, like, stay away from soda. So right now I'm sipping on unsweet tea, but then I sweetened it with a mandarin syrup I made. That's become a new hobby. I just take a fruit and I syrupize it, syrup it, you know?
That sounds really good. I mean, I'm going to try that because I have a very bad... My soft spot is for soda.
Yeah, all you do is you just take some fruit, you just muddle it up. I've done peaches, it works well. Mandarins, it works well. Just any more like soft, easy to break fruits, maybe even some berries. Strawberries would be good. You put it on a stove, boil it with like a cup of sugar, and that's pretty much it. Very simple.
Sounds very good.
Mm-hmm. So I've been enjoying that, but we got some things to discuss before getting into this review. So obviously, we're going to be talking about the film Do the Right Thing. And if you watched it recently, or if you're a very big fan of it, you will know about Senor Love Daddy. So, but I want to preface this by saying that this podcast is going to be like our normal podcast. It's going to be light. It's going to be bubbly. We will be voicing our opinions about it, but as we always do, we are going to give a proper film review first, and then we're just going to talk. Because obviously this movie right now is in full circulation once again because of its relevancy. Yeah. We're going to talk about this movie as it is, as a movie on its own, and we're going to talk then about the movie as a part of today's climate, what's going on, and how a film from 31 years ago is still more relevant than ever. So we're going to be discussing that, but we will just do the regular review. So yeah, if you're just like, I don't want to hear opinions, I mean, well, kind of like, too bad, you should. It's good to be open-minded, but we're going to discuss the film as it is. And with that also being said, it's Spike Lee week. So I'm hyped. I am hyped for Spike Lee week. So we've impromptu have made this Spike Lee week. And I think this might be a trend that you're going to see down the road, where we're going to dedicate a week to 2 films by a director we're going to like that we thoroughly enjoy. So with everything going on this month, we have Spike Lee week, and then in a few weeks we will also be doing a Steve McQueen, not the the motorcycle Steve McQueen, not the actors from the 50s, the director Steve McQueen week. So that'll be coming up soon, and that'll definitely, I'm hoping it'll be a trend, because there's definitely a lot more people I'd love to, like, I was looking through my records and I was like, oh, we can do a Jordan Peele week, because I have the soundtrack to Get Out and Us. So I was like, that would be amazing. And then like maybe like a John Carpenter week. Oh, okay. This is going to happen. This is going to be a thing. So we're going to be doing I'm sorry, Savannah, I've made it official already.
I'm fine with that.
We're going to be doing little weeks. And I think we can do both dedicated to directors and actors, things like that. So the first one to start is going to be Spike Lee. And I do have a little Spike Lee story before we get into Do the Right Thing.
Okay.
Funny enough, so I've mentioned that I have I've worked with Kevin Smith before and I have a connection and stuff like that. And so I didn't know that Kevin Smith wore the backwards cap whenever he directs as an homage to Spike Lee. And
Right.
before
Yeah.
finding that out, I was explaining to Kevin one day how I was at like a film camp and I was filming and my dad, like, I never wear baseball caps, never. And all of a sudden I showed up and my dad sees me. He's like, "Why are you wearing a backwards baseball cap?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm channeling Spike Lee. I'm channeling Spike Lee." And this was, God, probably when I was like 13, 14. And he's like, "Really? Because you look more like Kevin Smith." And so, but it's funny because I had no idea that he did that. So when I was telling him that story, he was like, "That's exactly what I do. Like, I wear this in homage to Spike Lee." And I was like, "Whoa." So, but that was like my first ever, like, I had never known about Kevin Smith until that moment. My dad was like, "No, you look more like Kevin Smith." I was like, "Who?" And then years later, I would have that little moment with him. So props, you know?
Love that.
Mm-hmm. So, as you guys saw, we're going to be talking about Do the Right Thing. So, I'm going to give a little brief synopsis. This film came out in 1989, and the synopsis is: on the hottest day of the year on a street in the Bed-Stuy section of Brooklyn, everyone hates and bigotry smolders and builds until it explodes in violence. Directed, written by Spike Lee, also has Spike Lee as one of the main characters. And you have Danny Alejo as Sal, Ossie Davis as Damea, Ruby Dee as Mother Sister, Richard Edson as Vito, Giancarlo Esposito as Buggin' Out, and Spike Lee as Mookie, Bill Nunn as Radio Raheem, and John Turturro as Pino. Those are the big build main characters of the movie. And like always, Savanna, before we get into this, what did you think of Do the Right Thing?
10 out of 10. I saw this movie in high school, and I think it's a movie that everybody can automatically connect with, or even just like see the importance of, because it starts off very light, and even the meaning of the film starts off on the lighter side. You see some dark spots here and there with racism, but I think the way Spike Lee takes that more of a creative look into the ugly side of, things, racism, and sort of make everybody understand it in a way. I think it's genius. Do the Right Thing can be really funny sometimes. It's
Mm-hmm.
entertaining, but it also, when it's serious, it's serious. And there's not a lot of movies that can flip like that and still make a meaningful point. So, Do the Right Thing is definitely genius for its time, even for now, and it has its rightful home in the Criterion Channel because of that.
Absolutely. 100% agree. I had actually never seen Spike Lee because when I grew up and even when I was wearing the backwards cap, I had never fully seen a Spike Lee movie before. I've only seen a few scenes, but at the time I wasn't allowed. So
Oh,
my first Spike Lee film wasn't until Black Klansman.
it wasn't.
It wasn't until Black Klansman. So, because my parents, growing up, they were strict and stuff like that. And with all the cursing and everything, that's why I couldn't watch Do the Right Thing younger.
Oh
But I
no,
did see
yeah.
scenes and stuff like that. Of course, I was like, I knew of him. And I still, like, even just from the little clips I was able to get on YouTube and sneak, I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And that's why I did the little homage when I wore the backwards cap. Now, for those who haven't seen this movie, oh my God, there is not a better time to watch this movie than now.
Yeah.
It's an impeccable film on its own. It has a lot of meaning, extremely well written. And even today, this film is 31 years old. Not only is it relevant in the bad ways, I guess you could say, of the plot, but it's very relevant today in terms of the way that this neighborhood is kind of broken down into, the way that everyone
Yeah.
kind of interacts. Like I was watching this and definitely in every, like, because it's a whole spectrum of different types of characters. Like I could totally see people I know or I have met in my life who mimic some of these characters.
Yeah.
And I loved how realistic it was, but I love also how Spike Lee plays with angles, and those little tilted angles, the side angles, the zooms, and getting in someone's face and stuff like that. This is an impeccable film. And if you haven't seen it yet, there's literally not a better time to watch it than now.
No, absolutely. Watch it
So
now.
let's discuss characters. So our main focal point of the story is Mookie. Now, Savannah, what did you think of these characters? Because there were a lot of characters in here for a movie. It almost felt like looking back at it, I'm like, this almost had as many characters as Twin Peaks. Jesus Christ! But did you have any particular favorites? Did anything stand out to you character
Yeah.
wise?
I thought each character was really like unique, which is interesting when you have that many characters in a movie. Like you were saying, like it's kind of like Twin Peaks. Everybody has their own personalities. One of the things I was most impressed with is how Spike Lee played with racism in his characters.
Mm-hmm.
There were the obvious racist people, like very obvious, saying the N word, saying disgusting slurs. But then there were the people that were kind of in the background with it. Particularly Sal. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he's not this outright racist person, but you towards the mid to the end of the movie, you see like, oh, wait a minute, this is just kind of like hidden. And
Yeah.
I think that that speaks volumes because even today, that's a huge, big issue that we have. The country has, I think. So
Absolutely.
the way he was able to play with that is just so outstanding to me because I think it's easy to cast the outright racist person. I think we've seen that in most films. The
Mm-hmm.
just the disgusting hatred, you know, that kind of person. But to play
Yeah.
a person that's clearly still racist but not as outward, not as like, oh, you this and that is genius because that's what people need to see. People need to see like even things like that are racist, even the little things. So that is what I was most impressed with this movie is how he showed it from different angles, you know?
Yeah, and he almost shows racism as more of a spectrum than just racist
Yes,
and non-racist.
because it
He shows
is.
everyone in between. Not only and not like on both sides. He shows the middle ground between black and white and white and black. So that was I totally agree. That was one of the best parts of this movie was that, like, for example, you had these two mediators almost for either like 100% sides, like, the racist side, and then the totally opposite, Malcolm X style, black supremacy type of deal. And you had Mookie as kind of like this mediator, and you had for one side, and you had Sal as like a mediator for one side. But as the story goes along, and we'll get to it, it kind of seems like one side takes over this moderator at one point.
Yeah.
um, I have to say, the best of the best of the best, like my favorite character and who I thought was the best actor in here was Giancarlo Esposito as Bugging Out. Like,
Yeah.
I was shocked. I know him from Breaking Bad.
Yes.
So to see him
Yes.
like this, I was like, what? Like, it was so crazy. But his performance, and also, what a name that fits him so well. Like, every minute we see him on screen, he literally is bugging out. So I loved his character. I loved how well structured he was, and I thought he was pretty funny. But he carried a lot of power and especially aggression in the end. Like, I just was really enthralled by the way his character was written, as well as Mookie too, and even Sal. Sal was very, like, all of them were extremely well written and multifaceted.
Well, let's be honest, we've all known a Sal. For sure. I know
Yeah.
we've all known a Sal. And I know we've all, in our own ways, known a Bugging Out. We've all known a Mookie. So
Mm-hmm.
these characters are very, very real. And Bugging Out is sort of the person that kind of puts this movie's plot on track. He's kind of the one that sparks everything up, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So now I also think the setting. What better way to represent, because it's not just having the setting set in Bed-Stuy, NY, but to have it literally on the hottest day of the year is such a great representation, because we all know, like, we're Floridians. We experience the hottest day of the year almost every day.
Yeah.
So we know how that affects us. What a great almost metaphor for kind of seeing everyone reaching to their boiling point by the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I loved the way the setting was used. It also made for some interesting scenes, like with Rosie Perez and, with the ice cubes and stuff like that, which, by the way,
I
that
wasn't.
introduction with Rosie Perez dancing, fantastic.
Yeah.
So good. I love the transitions. I love that entire, like, intro to it.
Yeah. Same.
Mhm.
Same, same, same.
Now, let's see. Let's talk about how the story travels,
Mm-hmm.
how it goes through. So it centers around Mookie, who works for this pizza place. Sal is, how would you explain Sal? Sal to me seems like someone who grew up with that racist environment, but having years of, like, having all of his customers almost be like family to him. He kind of, I guess you could say, put down his like his upbringing,
You
but
know,
not entirely.
it's kind of what I said about before. Like, it's sort of a hidden thing now. And what I mean by
Mhm.
that is I don't think he has this hatred like his son, but there is this prejudice there. There is this still this racist foundation he has. Um,
Yeah.
he doesn't want any problems. Clearly, he doesn't give anybody issues. He's never heard saying a racial slur. He's pretty friendly with everybody. But I think one thing Spike Lee did was like, hey, don't be fooled by this character. Just because he's not outright disrespecting us doesn't mean he is technically for us. So,
Yeah, obviously his son, played by John Turturro, who was really great too in this film, because for me, I love to hate him because he was just
oh
so
God.
foul mouthed. He was mean. He was awful, but he was still very well written. And what I liked is almost like, I guess you could say, obviously his son, Pino, was the aggressive, what we all know to be the standard definition of a racist,
Exactly.
where it's N-word every second. I hate, I hate, I hate, I hate. That is what Pino plays. And it seems like Sal is almost, like you said, like Spike Lee sets it up to where it's like, oh, he might be good, he might be changed, but it's almost like Sal's view is like, he looks at these characters almost as an exception to being black. Like, they're not, in his eyes, they're almost like an exception. Does that make much sense? Like, that's what I gathered.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the things I think is very telling is he never really corrects his son. Every time his son is saying the n-word, saying all these disgusting slurs, he kind of just like relax, relax. Why do you have this and that? Why are you like this? But it's never like, hey, that's wrong. So I think that's something telling about Sal himself. um but yeah, I think he I think he kind of hit it on the nose, especially with Mookie. He kind of sees Mookie as the exception.
Yeah. Like, it kind of just seems like everyone else but his customers, everyone else in the world he agrees with his son,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
except
yeah.
his customers, except people who've had that connection. And obviously we see that in the full end. But let's talk more characters. Let's talk about two characters, Demea and Mother Sister. What did you think about DeMayer and Mother Sister, the rise of the ebb and flow of their relationship that was presented? What did you think about that?
Well, I love Mother Sister. I love her. She was sort of like the little. She was definitely the mom of the Mother Sister, the mom of the neighborhood. She was sort of
Mhm.
like the light, like that sweet woman. Um, and I love the actress. I think she's in a lot of Spike Lee movies, if I'm correct, and I think she plays that character great. And I think their relationship is really nice, And one of the things when I think of Mother Sister, I think of the mayor and that
Yeah.
whole situation. That was sort of one of my favorite plots, I guess, of the movie. I
Yeah,
like
I
that.
really like the mayor. I really liked his character. It was very refreshing, even though like he was a drunk. He was always very hopeful. I
Yeah,
liked
yeah, there was something
like
about him.
he was very. I enjoyed his presence on the screen. Like it was nothing. Like despite being a drunk and besides being poor and only spending money on liquor and things like that, it's almost like he never gave up hope, especially winning the heart of Mother Sister. So I thought that was really sweet. I enjoyed his presence, and I really, like I said, I really commend Spike Lee for giving such a diverse set of characters, meaning like their personalities and the way that they think and stuff like that. Because you had DeMeo, you had obviously Senor Daddy Love behind the radio and stuff. Which who could you couldn't have picked a better person than Samuel L. Jackson to play that. Like that
Nah.
was fantastic, and I really liked the three old men, the Coconut Squid, Sweet Dick Willie,
Coconut, yeah.
and I think ML was the other one. I
Yeah.
liked their banter. I liked what they thought, kind of like just like old geezers, just commenting on the world as it passed by. Um, and yeah, I thought it was really good. There's one scene in this movie that I thought was impeccable because obviously, especially with today's climate, I thought it was so important to show that for Spike Lee to show that there was hate on all sides.
Oh,
And there
one of
is
my
just
favorite
this
scenes
scene
in the movie.
where you have a white cop, you have Mookie, you have a Spanish neighbor, and you have the Korean storefront owner, and you have Sal, all just going through
Oh wait,
cursing
it's
about each other's. What was it? Did I mess up?
I think it's Pinot.
Pinot?
Yeah,
Pinot.
Pinot.
Okay, Pinot. You have Pinot, and all of them are just commenting on each other, just saying the most disgusting things you can say about each other. And it's almost like it shows this vicious cycle, you know?
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant the way it was done. It just I like the fact that for a movie like this, it's even though it does kind of lean in one direction, it's still very, very open minded and it still kind of leaves the audience to interpret it with what's given. And so I think that Spike Lee showing us everything, like all these different opinions and stuff like that, was a brilliant way of making it more open ended. What did you think about that?
I think it was one of my favorite scenes for exactly you said. I think it kind of shows that on every side, from it was Pino talking about black people, Mookie talking about Italian people. Uh,
No, Mookie talking about cops, and then I
it
think it
wasn't
was cops talking
Italian.
about Spanish.
It wasn't an Italian people because I'm pretty sure he called somebody a pizza slinger.
Then it's probably the Italians.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I
I
remember
do remember that.
it was Pino and then Mookie and then the Spanish guy and then the white cop talking about the Puerto Ricans and then it was the Koreans talking about Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
So just that whole sort of train of thought going through, everybody had just insults lined up for this specific race. It did show that and I think Spike Lee has a good track record of showing hate all around because also in another movie we're going to review, Black Klansman, he shows hate that a lot of the Jewish people would get. Um, so I think Spike Lee does an amazing job. Obviously, this movie is about, you know, racism towards Black people, but he does a great job at showing that hate is on every side.
Yeah, although racism can kind of like racism is at some point an everyone problem. Although it does shift, and like today we're in the time of Black Lives Matter because that is what is most needed right now.
Yeah.
But racism and hate will shift, but at the end of the day, it's ugly. It's ugly no matter what. Any
Exactly.
type of hate, any type of racism is ugly no matter what. And although the main priority of this film, and especially in today's world, what's going on right now, the priority is shifted to hate towards African Americans.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that overall that the message of hate is almost universal. It's universally disgusting.
Yes.
No matter what side it's on. So I really enjoy that open-mindedness that Spike Lee does carry within almost all of his films.
Absolutely. I think we should talk about the sort of main plot of the story now and what it means. Because I think it's the strong, like, this is what the heart of the movie is. This is what the movie's trying to tell us. So I think
Okay,
we
you
should
want
talk
to do
about
you? Would you
the,
like to lead into it?
sure. So Bugging Out comes into the pizzeria where Mookie works, which Sal owns, and he's having his pizza, and he sort of notices that there are, pictures of Italian American celebrities on the wall. So he's like, "Hey Sal, like, why don't you put some pictures of black, African American celebrities, because most of your customers are African American." And Sal goes, "No, this is my store. No, you guys can go somewhere else if you don't like it. You can go to your own pizzeria and put whatever." So at that point, Bugging Out decides to protest against the pizzeria. What a scene! What a scene!
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about that?
I thought it was so well done, and I loved how you have Bugging Out trying to just go to everyone he knows and go, let's boycott Sal's, let's boycott Sal's, let's take him down. And finally, like, you think this guy's gonna end up nowhere because everyone's like, dude, just shut up. Even Mookie's like, dude, don't
Don't make
risk him getting
problems.
fired. Go,
Yeah.
just go. And there's people like, no, we grew up on Sal's Pizza, no way. But Bugging Out ends up coming across two people, another two prominent characters. Smiley, a I would say a mentally challenged young man who is famously known for always holding a picture of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. shaking hands, and he's always trying to sell those photos because he draws like little cute little things on them. And then you have Radio Raheem, a man who holds a giant boombox. Which, by the way, off topic, I was like, did people really like carry boomboxes all
Yeah.
around? I'm 21, so I'm like, what? I mean, the biggest thing I remember carrying was like my little portable DVD player
Yeah, the
into
little,
the
yeah.
car for like car trips and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't believe how, especially his was like had to be at least 20 pounds. No joke. Had to be at least 20 pounds, especially with all those batteries. God. But Radio Raheem, who just has this, his beloved music box? What is it? What is that called?
Boombox. The boombox.
Boombox, thank you. So he has his beloved boombox, and what's so iconic about Radio Raheem is Mookie when he's talking to him, he has these rings. On one hand says love, and on the other hand says hate. And he gives the most brilliant speech on how like hate was with the hand that slain Cain, and so he had love on his right hand. Like I thought that was just brilliant and so original and so fantastic. Do you remember? So I know right was for was it left was for hate because that's what Cain used
Uh-huh.
to kill his brother. Do you remember why the right one was love?
No, I don't actually.
I can't remember why the right one was love. Huh.
It'll come
I'm
back
gonna have to
to
look
us.
it up.
It'll come
But
back
yeah,
to us, yeah.
I don't know. Okay, I had a hard time. Like I went over the scene twice because I had a hard time interpreting that. I wasn't too sure why it was that because it was something like the right hand starts with like everything or something like that. But I thought it was just a brilliant overall speech. And I liked how we got to see reasons why they started joining Bugging Out's boycott. So Radio Raheem brings in his boombox, and Sal makes a big deal about it, tells him to get out, and then Smiley is trying to sell his pictures, and then Sal's son Pino starts just berating him, telling him to get out, just flat out mean, just flat out so mean to Smiley. Smiley did not deserve
No, I feel
any
so
of that.
bad. Poor
I
Smiley.
no, Smiley just I love Smiley. I just wanted to give him a hug the entire time. And I wanted to buy his photos. But and just the way everything just all comes together in that finale. And like, is there anything you want to talk about before I hit this ending and what happens?
I love how Spike Lee does it, because this is a movie about protesting. partially
Yeah.
this is a movie about protesting. And at first, for me, I was just like, oh, like they're protesting a pizza place. It's not until the middle of the movie that you're getting that this is representing something.
Yeah, that this is much
Clearly.
more than what it actually is.
But
It's really not just, boycotting a pizza place because of this. It's something a lot deeper.
but the way he conveys it, I feel like makes everybody understand. And that is the goal to this movie. That
Mm-hmm.
he's just like how he created this for everybody to understand what's going on. Because there's a lot of people that, feel some type of way about protests, have their own opinions. And the way he sort of communicated this story, at first you might not think, okay, like whatever, but it's not until the mid to ending where you understand what's actually going on. And I think it's just brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, so before we get to ending, I do want to ask you. So, Mookie, because I would say the main focus of the story is bugging out's adventure to getting the boycott. Although we mostly see, Mookie's side and him interacting with everyone. What did you think of Mookie's actual story? Like this kind of dilemma of him, working for Sal and everything like that, and the deal with his girlfriend and his kid. What did you think about the
I
entire storyline
I
for
think
for Mookie?
Mookie sort of represents a lot of, I guess, Americans at that time just trying to. He's clearly struggling, and he clearly has to put up a lot, because he's struggling. And I
Mm-hmm.
think Spike Lee does a good job at showing what the average person pretty much back then had to go through. Because let's be honest, like Sal's son was calling him the N word and saying all these things. And even though Mookie was cool, he had to take that. And I just think it's because of the situation. Um, but I do think Mookie is a very relatable character because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mookie kind of had his, obviously he had straight up issues with Pino. He had
Oh,
some
yeah.
qualms with Sal. But really, I think his biggest thing was that here was Vito, a brother who didn't have those views. And he's like, stand up for yourself. Do this, because I think he kind of realizes at some point that if Vito opened his mouth and stood up to his father and his brother, that he could, it's like that stereotype of what your parents believe, you have to believe. What your family believes, you have to believe, and
Right.
it's spread. And I thought it was, for Mookie, so frustrating that you had Vito, someone who was on, this higher middle ground, that where he could have convinced his father and especially his brother to chill out, to stop saying that, and to educate them. And Vito never rose. Vito never rose to that level and disappointed Mookie. In my opinion, I think that's what took place, because I for sure was disappointed in Vito. I was like, dude, stand up to your brother. Tell your father to like hold back, like, or tell your father to, crack the whip on Pino. So, what did you think of? What do you agree with that? Like, do you agree with Mookie and Vito and stuff like that as maybe a route for, and another reason why Mookie acts the way he does in the end?
Yes. And I think, again, we're representing a lot of Americans. We
Mm-hmm.
all know somebody, let's be honest, in our lifetime, we've all met somebody that's kind of racist. And I think what Spike Lee is trying to convey here is just like, this is everybody's responsibility. And it should be. If you hear something racist, if your own family is racist, if, the thing not to do is just to sit back and be quiet and
No, and
sort
as
of
we've learned,
justify your
silence
actions.
is just as bad. Silence can be just as bad as saying something awful. Silence can be just as bad. And we do see the effects of that take place in the end. So ultimately, in the end, you have Bugging Out, Radio Raheem, and Smiley. They all storm the place and they start, ripping apart Sal. And then Sal loses it, starts saying things that you can tell no one would have ever thought Sal would have said.
Yeah.
Because you can see everyone's just reaction, because they expected this from Pino, but they never expected this from Sal. And at the end of the day, too, I think it's also like this realization for everyone where it's like, we have to realize where Pino got this understanding from.
Yeah. that's, this is what I'm saying. Like in the beginning of the movie, mid movie, you kind of think that there is something there with Sal, but he's definitely not a Pinot. And at that moment, he was Pinot.
Yeah, in that moment, he was Pinot. He was the root to Pinot's hatred. Pinot's hatred stemmed from him. Just like most families, racism is almost like some type of autoimmune disease that just gets passed through generation through generation through generation. But obviously, we have the power to stop that. And like I said, Vito had the power to stop that, or at least control it, or to try, and he still didn't. Because maybe to him, because it wasn't his problem.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, it wasn't his problem. And that's very like, ooh, like I said, I was like, come on, Vito, you're a good dude, Vito, what to do. And he just could never do it. He couldn't go against his father, and he couldn't go against his brother, probably because of that mentality of, well, they're my family, I love them, and I know they mean well.
And it's this whole like, oh, but they're good people. We all hear that at one point, like, oh, but they're good people. They just.
Yeah. So what ends is Sal takes a baseball bat to Radio Raheem's boombox. And then from there, Radio Raheem gets so furious. There's a fight, and they bring the fight out into the restaurant and outside of the restaurant and everything. And I just like, it was just so crazy how obviously you see all men fighting each other. And the only people the cops take are Bugging Out, Smiley, and Radio Raheem. They don't try to hold back Sal, Pino, or Vito.
Yeah.
They only hold back those three. Meanwhile, it's not like Pino, Vito, or Sal called the police or anything like that. I think they did say that Pino might have called, but you don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he actually does, because you see him like in the scene the entire time. You don't really see him on the phone.
Right.
So they automatically just assume it was Bugging Out, Radio Raheem, and Smiley. And they take them all. And what ends up happening is and this is where it's very on topic with today, where Radio Raheem is choked out and killed. And watching that, for me, for first time watching that and knowing what's going on in the world, was like, so you're telling me nothing has changed in 31 years?
Yeah.
31 years, nothing has changed.
Not
and
even
like my
that,
heart,
31 years, the same thing happened.
It's almost like literally the same fate. The same fate happened. And one of the most heart-wrenching things was like, and one thing, I was so angry because Sal, Vito, Pino didn't even say like, hey man, get off of him. They just watched what the cops did. They just saw it all, and they didn't say anything. They didn't try to break it up and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, what was all this over? A small little boycott because one guy wanted to have a photo of an African American on the wall in this restaurant. Another man wanted to have his boombox played in the restaurant, and it all escalated. Something so small had escalated into this fiery inferno. It's kind of like that expression, it only takes one ember to start, a full-fledged fire. And that happened, and it was awful. So from before we move on to that point, what did you think of the way this was all treated? Like, what do you think of the way Spike Lee told this side of the story?
I think it's something everybody should watch, because at the end of the day, at the end of the movie, Sal never says anything about the death of Radio Raheem.
Mm-mm.
Except, well, it was their fault. I think he says something along the lines of, well, he did it to himself. He
started it or something like that, like something obviously incredibly inappropriate.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like if they were arrested, if they were whatever, you shouldn't die over that.
You shouldn't die.
And what was so disgusting when he was dead on the floor and the police officers were just like, come on, get up, like yelling at him. And it's just so, yeah, it's so disgusting. And then finally, the way it ends is Mookie, this mediator for the entirety of the film, he realizes that the people, like, even though he's been defending both sides, the people who he almost stood by the most, because even though he both defended, bugging out and stuff like that, he really defended Sal and his job and the people who, his coworkers, more than bugging out Radio Raheem or Smiley at the time.
Yeah.
And I could only imagine being in Mookie's place, seeing that happen and realizing, like, they don't care.
No.
And so it culminates with Mookie taking a trash can and throwing it into the store. And then a fire begins. And then, Sal and his two sons are just watching, his business go up in flames. What did you think of that approach to the ending?
Necessary, because when they're having this discussion about, Mookie and Sal, the last discussion, Mookie goes, well, what do you care? You're going to get the insurance money. It's all going to go back to normal for you. And Sal still doesn't talk about that somebody died. He's just,
Yeah.
I built this. This is everything I had. It doesn't matter. It's so, not only is it infuriating to watch, it's so real. It's
Yeah.
so real. Even that somebody lost their life, the one thing he's worried about is his business burning down. I don't know what's more relevant than that today.
There's this side of racism. It's not just hating the person, you're also dehumanizing a person.
Exactly.
So when there is a death, when there is something, it's not a thing on that person's head. And that is the ugly, obviously racism is ugly, but that is what I think is the worst of the worst of the worst side of racism. Not just the name calling, not everything, but like the dehumanization caused by racist and racism is this, like, just to be so selfish, like you said, be like, well, my business, I started this business from the ground up. It's like, this dude died and you didn't try to stop it. And all you said was that he started it over a boombox, over pictures on the wall of your business. It was absolutely necessary for Spike Lee to portray this. A lot of people at the time this movie came out thought this was, almost like it was like a black supremacy type of thing. But obviously that is not what this film is. This
Not
film
at
is
all.
realistic. And so with the rioting and stuff like that, that is what we see in real life. That is what's currently going on. If this was portrayed as like Mookie just walking away, that wouldn't have done any justice. I mean, there's no way to grant justice in the side, but even more so, if there were different tiers of justice, what Mookie's character did was he did the right thing. And that is why I believe this film is called that, because in the end, whether or not you agreed, you still have your own interpretations. I think it's very clear to see that Mookie did the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just scary how relevant this is and how scary, like, that this is the story now. 30 years
Yeah.
later, this is this story.
And it's so crazy. And one of the things I do like, what I really loved is obviously because we only get a few glimpses of the Korean supermarket.
Yeah.
And in the end, when they go towards, his business and they're, all of these now rioters they're just angry. They're just angry. They start walking to him and he's like, no, I'm black. And they're like, what? And then they kind of just realize, like, no, like, this is a man who's gone through similar struggles. This is a man who faced similarly what they face. And I liked how it shows that it really is, racism isn't just black and white. This problem, the whole main focus of the story is between black and white, but in reality, it's a full spectrum of hate and racism and everything going on in the world.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, black, I was gonna say Black Klansman, but like in Black Klansman, Spike Lee does a good job at showing hatred with, other groups of people, whether it be Koreans or Jewish people. Spike Lee does tell their story in a way. So I agree with you. I do think that's a good point in the movie.
And even more so, this film is relevant with just that Korean man, because after COVID-19, I cannot imagine how many, Asians in the world are going to face some type of racism because of COVID-19.
Of course, it's sad. It's
So
very sad.
so this movie is literally, it's almost like our timeline of history has had this like puzzle, like this empty puzzle, and Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing just fits. It's like copy paste and fits in our new timeline. And it's
It's
crazy. It's
horrifying.
baffling. It's baffling.
It's horrifying. The fact that 30 years later, we see this movie in reality.
Yeah.
That we're watching this movie pretty much unfold before our eyes. And we need more stories like this, clearly, because
Oh my
nothing has
God.
changed. We need more
Nothing has
people
changed.
making movies like Do the Right Thing.
And if you're listening to this, no matter, and I'm going to just say, for lack of a better term, no matter what side you are, we always implore you to be open-minded, because at the end of the day, Do the Right Thing is someone's story. Many people's story, in fact.
But you know what?
So, what?
All of you, everyone listening, racism is hatred. It's disgusting. And if you think any part of what's been going on the last, what is it now, a week?
Oh God, it's been the longest week I've ever lived.
If you fall on the side where you don't think that this is an issue, then that's the wrong side. And you need to think about a lot of things, because I can speak for myself, and I'm pretty sure I could speak with Stephanie here, saying that, like, we are in support of Black Lives Matter. We think what happened is absolutely disgusting and things do need to change. And Do the Right Thing is an amazing movie because it shows what is going on. This is somebody's story, and this story deserves to be listened to without an excuse.
Absolutely. And if you are currently listening to this right now going, you know what? Yeah, I do think Black Lives Matter. But then you go, but I think Blue Lives Matter. I think all lives matter. You have the right intentions, but your execution is not valid during this time. That is not to disrespect any, like, if people who believe Blue Lives Matter, all lives matter, like, you can believe that. But to go out and publicly express that, to do it, you're taking away. You are taking away the power from your original statement.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with everything going on in the world, people who support Black Lives Matter, majority wish nothing but peace. Majority wish nothing but change. And if you are struggling to see that, please watch this movie. We always say movies are just people's story. And before you have a firm set decision, open up both sides, see both sides, see all sides. In this case, see all 20 different sides you could take here. Because in order for you to make that concise decision of saying, okay, where do I stand? You have to see every side. Don't go picking and choosing. Don't go, oh, I'll see this, but I'm going to close a blind eye to that. No. Watch this movie. And even if you are already Black Lives Matter, you're already on par with everything going on. Still watch this movie if you haven't seen it. Holy crap. Because it's that realization of, it's been 31 years. What happens? Like, why wasn't a film like this was made and was praised at the time? And then what happened after that? Why are we still in this area? It's just so baffling to me. It just is incredibly baffling to me that we live in this world right now where we are so advanced. And as we grow, as we go through different generations. We grow and we learn and we grow and we learn. And this just feels like a huge smack in the face that it's like, have we really learned? Have we grown?
And unfortunately, like, after seeing this movie, I don't think so.
No, not in this area.
So, yeah, I agree with Stephanie. Before saying things like all lives matter, and of course, all lives matter, but
And you can have that is look, you if you say that, that is not disregard of you being a beautiful human being.
no, no,
Obviously,
no.
if you
I
go
think
Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, and if you go, Blue Lives Matter, everyone, oh my God, you don't take away the fact that you are not a beautiful human being. The best example I've seen is like when we celebrate Breast Cancer Awareness Month. That doesn't mean all the other cancers don't matter. It's just to bring awareness because that just happens to be its month. That just happens to be the time where it needs the awareness. That's what this is now. So if you say Black Lives Matter, please do not think that you are disregarding every other life. It's not.
this is the best way I've seen it put. All lives can't matter until Black lives matter, because
Precisely.
all lives don't matter if Black lives don't matter. So please think about it like that before you throw that hashtag all lives matter out, because right now it's Black lives matter. That is what we need
Yeah.
to be focusing on right now.
Yeah. And also you have to think about it this way. And this is my personal opinion. You can say, Stephanie, screw off. I don't care. I'm just going to voice my opinion here because this is our podcast. We can do what we want.
This is important.
It's entirely important. But if you are listening to this and if you are saying all lives matter and stuff like that, and if you are white, just imagine for a second, just try to imagine. You won't be able to fully comprehend, but try to imagine what it would be like to be a Black human being and to hear Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter. You will feel disregarded. You will feel like that but just throws the beginning statement in the trash. So empathy. Empathy is the biggest thing that you can have in this world. It heals. It is what makes us more human and connects us. So please, before you start saying that, think of how it sounds from every angle, from every side.
Absolutely. Personally speaking, I am for the protests, and I think everybody should be in support for protests because their needs change.
It's our basic right. We have the right to protest.
Absolutely.
It is our right to do that.
And if you guys can't protest, I know Stephanie and I will probably be putting some links some places you can donate. Um, looking for information on it, what things you can do, petitions you can sign, because I am aware that not everybody can go out and protest during this time. So
Yeah, like I personally can't. I'm still very, very super, super freaked out by the virus and everything. And currently, I have my 80-year-old grandmother living with me, and I would absolutely hate it if I got sick and got her sick. So you can, even if you have that mentality, or you are, it's okay to be afraid to go out to these protests. But don't be afraid to go online, show your support, because that is what social media is for. Go online, show your support. And even if you can't donate monetarily, there's so many petitions out right now that you can sign that do make a change. So there's so many ways to go about it. And even if you have family members that if you post it on social media, like they're going to have issues. And if you don't want to start any arguments, sign as many, petitions. You don't have to post about it. You can do what you can without no one knowing if you live in those more hostile environments where, your friends or family would find out. And if you can't properly educate them without it being a full turmoil, I could understand that. But there's so many different things that you can do in the world to help out what's going on, because this is an everyone issue. This is an issue against everyone.
and like Stephanie's saying, we understand there are situations that are hostile that can potentially, but please also be aware that it is our responsibility to educate those around us. So please,
Mm-hmm.
if you see somebody saying something racist or just not true, even something as can be like, innocent, like a like all lives matter. Please educate them. Please stand up, because right now the world needs people that
It's all about starting a conversation. It's all about having a friendly conversation and educating one another. That's all we got to do. And seeing just both sides. Because I've seen so many people post like all lives matter. And I've seen other friends of mine who have been able to explain to them lovingly and say, hey, dude, you are gorgeous. I love you for this. But this is what people might interpret it as blah, blah, blah. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to not only just stand up, don't be afraid to educate or have a conversation.
And before
Um,
someone says, "Oh, Purple Noon is getting political," this is not a political issue. This is a human rights issue. So,
exactly. At the end of the day, and that's what movies are for. Don't say, "Oh, they shouldn't be talking about this." No, like this is we're humans. Movies are designed to show people's stories, human interaction, connections and stuff like that. And how could we not? How could we not when this movie mimics everything going on in the world right now? And it is everything going on in the current climate of the world right now. So it's okay if you don't like what we say. That's to your own prerogative. You don't have to listen. Listening to this is nothing but a choice to you. But it's definitely our choice to express things that the way that we want to express. And the one thing I do want to talk about, so this is not only we're going to be talking about Do the Right Thing, we're going to be talking about Spike Lee's impromptu Three Brothers short film. Savannah, what did you think of this short film?
I cried. I
If
cried.
you haven't seen it, it's free. And it shows, in comparison, Radio Raheem's death to the death of George Floyd and Eric Gardner, two other real life human beings that died the same way as Radio Raheem did 31 years ago on a film. And so it's very chilling and it's very nerve wracking to literally see not only history repeat itself, but it almost just feels like watching one big disgusting play, seeing like the original, the remake and the reboot. And it's so disgusting, but so important to acknowledge and understand. You know, I believe Eric Gardner, he was strangled by police in actually Staten Island, where I'm from. I want to say at least 3 years ago. And this is still happening, and this is still an issue. And if you haven't seen it, please just look up Spike Lee, Three Brothers, and it's available for free. All you got to have is internet. And it really it's jaw dropping. It really is just stunning, and it really just emphasizes how we haven't even moved. Like it's not even like, oh, we're in a step in the right direction. It's like, no, we've been frozen for 31 years.
How long is the short film?
I want to say the short film is like less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
The
In
short film is definitely, I think it is. I'll look that up right now. But it even if it was 30 minutes, it's
no,
still
you
worth
yes.
everyone's time.
Yes.
It's still worth everyone's time. Sorry if it's getting staticky. Whenever I look up things on my iPad, it trickles into the microphone. Yeah, so Garner passed away in 2014, and the short film is only a minute and 35 seconds.
The fact that Spike Lee makes you feel so much in a minute and 35 seconds, that we see these three different people, how they co-align in 1 minute and 35 seconds. Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. And we regardless, like we recommend watching both clearly, but they are just incredibly important now during this time. And I really like, we're going to be providing links and things like that, so petitions, foundations, things like that you can donate to, participate in, things like that. At the end of the day, look, we're in the rough of shit right now. So the best thing you can do on top of educating yourself, getting acquainted with these links, these fundraisers, these petitions, and everything like that, is literally just be nice to your neighbor. Be nice to your neighbor, show love, show compassion, show empathy, even to those who are spewing nothing but hate, because that is the way humanity prevails.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, we just got hit with a pandemic. We just got hit with this. And this is what the world needs right now. So that's going to be my final send off: educate and spread love.
Yes, I agree with Stephanie. Please support the Black Lives Matter movement. Like I said, this is not a political statement. This is not, oh, well, all lives matter. Please support Black Lives Matter because it's important and things have not changed. And this is an issue that we all need to address. And this is the right side that we need to be on. Black Lives Matter. And that's where I'm going to end it.
So the next time you hear us, we're going to be talking about, and also, wait, is it obvious to just say 10 out of 10? 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10?
10 out of 10, of course.
Perfect. All right, so the next time you guys hear us, we're going to be talking about another Spike Lee film, personally my favorite Spike Lee film, Black Klansman.
Great movie.
And it'll still be a little bit more reflective, but we're going to be in a different time period discussing that. And, almost discussing a different side, because this movie mostly focuses on, the equality this shows almost like the absence of love and kindness that we need, whereas Black Klansman is going to show us the hate in full throttle.
Yes.
So, and also, naturally at Purple Moon, we love you guys, and we're going to do a send-off. We'll have all the links of everything that we talked about in below, and the way that we're going to send off is the last
8 minutes.
8 minutes
46
of
seconds.
8 minutes and 46 seconds. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to have a moment of silence, and we're just going to have just a black screen, an empty space, because George Floyd was held down for 8 minutes and 49 seconds. And we just want to take the time and opportunity to not only convey how long that is, but to just give you a moment to think, give you a moment to process, give you a moment to gather your emotions. And we love you. Be strong during these tough times, and you'll be hearing from us again soon. Take care.